I'd show up with a jacket, well, like a jacket like this, and Bill would tell you, he said, where'd you get that? And he knew it was, oh, I said, Fashions by Steve. Because clothes were another one of his favorite things to, and if it didn't fit him, I don't know if any of you had the experience of one of the dinners, he'd start to look at him and said, what size are you? And there would be times he'd pull out some really wonderful item of clothing people would walk out the house with, so it did work out. So anyway, had to cover the stuff, since it was a big part of his life. So I'm trying to, it's hard to know after, well, Steve had often said, John, why don't you come move down here into one of our apartments? You know, in the 90s, this wasn't enough project. They fixed up the apartment building next door, and sure enough, we were all buckled, hunkered down from the plague, and my landlord had decided to sell the building I was living in on short notice, and I called up Steve and said, Steve, the time has come, I'm coming down, and so they were able to accommodate me, so that kind of, there was nothing else to do during the COVID, so that began my sort of return to St. Louis period, and kind of like I was looking forward to more years than I got sort of being acquainted with Steve on an everyday basis, since we've really been separated for decades, haven't been really living in the same place. But I think we kind of settled into a routine. We didn't go a lot. We kind of, you know, concerts and going to the garden and so forth. After we got the place whipped into shape, we did have a kind of a swan song of a trip. We finally started, well, it's time to get out, and we had this, one of our bucket list trips was, I don't know if any of you know where the Natchez Trace is. It's kind of a parkway that starts in Natchez, Mississippi, and ends up near Nashville. That was one of our bucket list trips. So we did that last fall, almost a year ago. It was quite interesting. We were in Vicksburg, where our great-grandfather fought with the Union and was wounded. So we got to visit that battle site, and we had a great stay in Natchez. And the parkway is, I highly recommend it. If you've been on the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's kind of similar to that, but it's a wonderful, just drive at 50 miles an hour, and nobody's there. And I remember telling Steve when I got back, you know, Steve, if there's driving in heaven, I think it'll probably be like driving on the parkway. And he laughed. Because he said, and then I said, because being from St. Louis, we know what driving in hell is like. So that was kind of our last, and I guess I'm not really going to dwell on after the heart attack. I don't want to really talk about all we went through. I do want to note that I could only count one day when Miriam did visit Steve in the hospital there at the nursing home. So I think that was the one day she was fighting with the insurance people, so I just want to note that. So we're going to end. It's very hard. I couldn't really, the only ending I could come up with, last winter, while Steve was in the hospital, there was an art show at the museum on German Expressionist arts. And there was a quote by an artist. He's not well known, but I just thought of Steve, and I said, I've got to write this down. And it went, what is an artist, after all? I paint for myself and rejoice with the few who enjoy it. And it is a joy that is much purer, much more open and beautiful than if the whole world were to cheer along. Art is and remains for the artist. I don't just mean the working artist. You can also be an artist in your outlook. So I guess Steve was kind of both, really. So I think I'm going to have to end it with that.